one of the main things that God has given me is to be able to learn a lot of things and like be able to transmit them or like restitute them or use them. And if I take, for example, the example of worship, like I am not the best keyboard player, I'm not the best singer, but because I'm able to understand all of it together, I can be a good support. Like I'm more like a background person, not more so much a frontline. But then because I am able to like understand how it all works together, there is something more I can bring to actually every group of people. And so I feel like that translates to different things in my life because I'm an engineer, but I am also kind of a keyboard player, but at the same time I love dancing, and then I go to the gym, and then like there is so much faces of me that do not make sense altogether, but I feel like it's leading somewhere, even though I don't know where.
Hey man, you want to talk about God?
Lisa, welcome. We're so excited you're here. Before we get started, I have a question for you.
Go ahead.
So, yesterday in the morning, during rehearsal, right? Zion went off on his little tag city doing whatever he was going to do in rehearsal, right?
Which song was it?
It was at the end of When I Like Eyes With You.
Yes.
Like at the end of rehearsal.
Yes.
There's like a 10-minute.
Yeah, we had a flow type of thing.
So here's my question, is that during that period of time, you and Matt somehow telepathically communicated with each other on some hits and what you were doing, and it was beautiful. And I want to know, how does that happen?
So we have the chance to play a lot. We play a lot, like in the services, we are always together. So we have learned how to listen to each other.
Mm-hmm.
And so when one of us would become creative, sometimes it's me, I start something and he's like, oh, that is cool. And like, I will watch him and like tell him what I want or like try to.
But how do you tell him what you want?
Well, I mean, we are kind of aligned. We are like.
But like, do you have like eyebrow signals that mean something? Because both of you, your hands are taken.
Because I would be like, I don't know. It's the head.
I feel like
it's the
Lisa
look.
communicates with a little shoulder when she gets going too.
Yeah,
she got a
like
little
I
of
would
this.
look at him and I will be like that.
Okay, some head
And
nods.
like it
Morse
will,
code, but
or
with head
I
nods.
will listen to him and I will hear something and I will look at him and I will do like, and then I will go, and like it's just, I don't know. We just listen a lot to each other, and like we just sing.
In your mix, in your ears, do you have the entire kit, or do you just have like snare and kick, or?
No, I have all of it
All of it.
because I like to listen my mix more or less as if I was listening a song on Spotify. So I'm not the type of like musician that have the singers all the way down, their own instrument all the way up, and the rest somewhere. I am slightly up above the other people, to be sure, but then I listen a lot to the bass. So I have bass, guitar, and me a little bit above, and then the drums are like, I don't know exactly where, but like I have to hear all of it together.
Where do you put the drums? So like when you do because we can do the spatial thing.
Mm-hmm.
Like I like to have the kick drum right in the center of my head.
Oh, that is a good question.
Do you ever play with that?
I never actually fixed that. As long as I can hear it, that's fine.
Okay. Matt, would you have the same answer?
I'm sorry.
Like how do you come on? How do you communicate with Lisa?
So I was thinking, we like kind of toss softballs up to each other. Like we'll like listen, and I'll hear a melody that I think needs accented, so I'll be like, I don't know, like I'll throw something out there that matches that melody, and then I'll look over and she'll acknowledge it. She'll like smile and she'll be like, I got it the next time around. So I'll do it again. And it's kind of the same way back and forth. Like I keep keys pretty high up in my head regardless. So if I hear something that goes out of the norm of what we've been playing, I'm like, okay, that's going where I think it's going to go.
It was just yesterday, and like it wasn't a song that was on the set list or anything. So it was using relatively the same chords, but it was just playing. And I tell you, in rehearsal, like Lisa hit this like triple hit, like dun dun dun, like once, and then the next time Matt hit it with her, and then repeated like, I don't know, 4 or 5 times. Like it wasn't very long, but it just took one of them doing it once, and then I still think they telepathically communicated.
Well,
And it was like, do this.
I feel like there is also a huge thing about like feeling where the room is going and where the lead is going.
Mm-hmm.
Obviously I have backup Zion a lot, and so, well, there is obviously like the Holy Spirit behind all of it, because of course any of it would make sense if he's not there. But then there is that way of like back up the person that is leading, that makes you also feel what you do behind. And so I think that we are kind of all locked in, like trying to figure out like where this is going. And then when someone starts something that kind of leads in that direction,
Right.
we kind of look and acknowledge each other, and we just go, you know?
It's really interesting because running sound, I do the same thing, except I'm looking at the crowd. I'm looking at who's in the room. So you guys are paying attention to each other. You're paying attention to who's leading.
And Corey too. Let's include Corey. in this
Corey
conversation.
can be there, right? And the MD plays a part in that, obviously, and you're going up and down. But I am in the back reading the room, and that's going to control what I do in terms of faders going where to have them be a part of that moment and move more and get more into it.
Yeah. I mean, I feel like, for example, those hits, I am not sure I would have done that if, for example, it was Jason leading, because I feel like he has a different type of feels when he come up on stage. So yeah, those are the things that you just,
I mean, you're an incredibly talented musician, so
this is questionable.
It's not questionable.
Yeah,
I thought I knew my most favorite player, like keyboard player of all time.
I feel like there is a lot of people that play way better than I do.
Well, I mean, sure. That's fair.
That is
I
true.
think that people would say that a lot about, like, I think I feel privileged that some people like to play, like when I play guitar with them, they're a lot more technically sound and proficient guitarists. But like, I feel like one of the things I hope is a strength is like just my ability to like kind of be in the vibe with people. And so like, that's the value I add. And, rock moves.
He does
Twisted.
have a
Power
strong
stances.
power stance.
Yeah. That's how I overcompensate.
Corey, you're great at playing guitar because you play what you're supposed to play.
I think it's interesting, like the idea of, I always thought that like the best musician was the most technically skilled, or like could do the craziest fills or the craziest sweeps. Like the best musician is the one with the best feel and knows when. The times that a musician stops playing tells you more about who they are as a musician than times when they are playing.
Ooh.
That's well said.
That's good.
That's well said. Right. But I thought that I like, and I still love, if I could ever play with Sean Carroll again on keys. That guy was all over, like, and just so fun, and he would just go. But there is a sweet spot when Lisa's on keys, and you just know, like, and like you never know when a minor chord's coming in,
right?
Especially if it becomes into a more of a flowy moment. There's going to be some sort of minor that happens that just feels like, ugh. And everybody in the band looks at each other and is like, ugh. It's so great. And then it's all Lisa. Lisa goes, eyebrows up.
So I feel like Lisa can and will get to the point that Sean was at if she wants to. Because one of the other important things to know about Sean is that Sean was a master MD in his time. And he basically MD'd 4 services a day for 2 years. And what he also did is he's been playing with a lot of the like core people on the team and playing behind Jason for years.
Yeah.
And so like the feel of the room and where it was going to go, like what that also meant is because he knew the feel of the room and the band so well and Jason so well and he was MDing, that he could kind of make everybody else go where he was going on the keyboard. He never followed in it. He was 100, and it made a lot of sense for him to, and it sounded great.
Yeah. He always said too, he's like, in his opinion, it was like always the best case scenario was for the keyboard player to be the MD because it provided a little bit more flexibility to go, like where he wanted to go in his head, like he could just take over in a sense where if you're a bass player doing MDing, like that's hard. You really need to rely on the keys to jump in and fill our guitars to do spatial stuff, which has been amazing too. Like watching, like as you've started MDing more,
Well, it's
you're getting that
actually
feel.
rough.
It is great.
It is
Jesus,
rough.
it's rough.
No, what's rough?
I think that being a keyboard player definitely gives you the freedom to lead without leading. Even though I'm not MDing, I can still kind of put some influence in what is going on. The problem with MDing is like, yes, you have to be fast at transmitting to other people what you want to do in your head. Like when I'm MDing, I do not care. Like if Matt is there, I don't care about being able to tell him, he will get it.
Right.
But then I have to communicate with the other people, and I'm not always sure how to say what I have in my head. You know what I mean? And so that makes it a little bit harder. But then if you can communicate exactly what you think, then yes, it's a good thing.
In your head, do you speak in a different language?
Um,
Because you know like 14 languages.
This is like where we have to like kind of, we could just talk about the dynamics of a worship team all night, but I feel like we should stop and like pause like and talk like just like, because your experience and who you are is like,
That was my transition.
that was your transition.
Yes, we're going to languages. Okay, now tell me about yourself. Why?
Great.
do
You
know
did a
4
great job.
languages?
Good.
It was my transition.
Great.
And you cut it off at the head.
No, I was trying to make sure I was landing the plane on that.
Okay.
Lisa speaks multiple languages, everybody.
That's incredible.
Why would you speak multiple languages? Because she thinks that everybody should speak multiple languages.
I
or she
agree
thought
with her.
everybody
I don't.
did.
Yeah.
Then she came
Okay.
to the United States.
Okay, so
I went to Spain before, and that's where I
so
realized.
what languages do you speak?
French, which is my first one, Dutch, which is the second language of Belgium, English and Spanish.
English and Spanish. Why do you know 4 different languages?
Well, French because that's the language like I've been raised into.
Right.
Dutch because I'm from Belgium. I'm born in Belgium, which is a country that has 3 national languages, so French, Dutch, and German. So because the 2 main languages of the country are French and Dutch, German is like just a small part. You have to learn the other language that you do not speak at home at school. So I'm born in the south part of the country where we speak French. So at school, very early, I think like when you are like 10 years old, you start learning Dutch, and like the Dutch people start learning French. And then later on you have English because English is like the international language right now. So you have to be able to express yourself. And then at 3rd, when I was like 15, so that would be your junior year in high school, I had the choice between German and Spanish, and because I'm French speaker, Spanish is way easier, so I decided to learn Spanish. And that's it.
why does Belgium have 3 national languages?
So because Belgium is not, I was about to say it's not a real country, but Belgium has been Belgium has been created. It's kind of an artificial construction to make French people and Napoleon back in the day, to avoid that Napoleon would try to expand to other countries. They create Belgium. They put a king that was like from Germany but married to an England woman. Like it's a whole construction to make sure basically that Napoleon will not go over to expand his country like France. And so they just took a piece of land that was like south of like Netherlands and like north of France, and they kind of created it there.
What was it before Belgium? Was it a part of France?
The south? No, it was part of Netherlands actually. So there were also like some people complaining about like not being very. There were minorities in all the country they were part of. So when they wanted to be independent, they were like, yeah, that is actually cool, because if they are independent and we create a whole new country, then France cannot expand. So that is actually perfect. They can be. That's a whole like history.
Dude, now I
There's
just
a-
want to go
I feel-
Google it all.
Yeah, Napoleon in general, like it was just like a name that I've heard obviously
Right.
about
There's a
him
movie
as
coming about
there's a
it.
movie with Joaquin Phoenix, and
It looks so
I
good.
was just like Ridley Scott directed, and I was just like Sunday morning, like just Googling and trying to like
I wonder if
figure
they're
out-
going to talk about how they formed Belgium to stop him.
I hope so.
Me too.
Well, I mean, it was more a consequence. Like, they were more like,
Oh.
oh, yeah, we will accept the independence of Belgium because that will serve actually the
Got
fact
you.
that we don't want Napoleon to
Got you.
extend. So it's a whole thing.
Okay. So you grew up in Belgium.
I did.
What age were you when you left Belgium?
24.
Okay. 24 years of your life in Belgium.
Yes.
Okay. Can you tell me about living life in Belgium? Because I've only ever lived life here in America.
I mean, as a black person, it's very interesting. So I was commenting with Corey earlier in the car that I say that I'm Belgian because that's where I come from. My passport is Belgian. I traveled from Brussels to come here. But my parents are from DRC, Congo, so the Democratic Republic of Congo.
Mm-hmm.
And I consider that I'm half-half. So I'm half there, half Belgian. And in Belgium, when you are black, you are automatically not seen as a Belgian person. You are not European. Like, they know you are from Africa anyways. So that set me up in a different like perspective because I was kind of always not really fitting. You know, I was there, but like I was kind of the stranger, even though like I don't have an accent when I speak French. Like, I'm fine. Like, I understand everything. But I was always like the only black kid, the only black girl, like all the time. So it's a little interesting. But other than that, like the country is fine. I mean, you have the same things that you have here, more or less. Like nothing really crazy to say about it if you do not ask me a question.
Right.
You know?
Except they have 3 languages.
Yeah. Yes.
It's interesting. I think the thing that struck me the most was just thinking that, like, because to me, like, I guess it's just interesting to think that, and it's sad, but like that you were so aware of the fact of like feeling like you might be an other in your home country. And I think of, and again, just we share from our limited perspective, which is amazing to have a different perspective. But in my head, somehow I think that's a very uniquely like U.S. thing.
Of what?
Of like not racism obviously, but like that is, it's like that's. I guess I'm just struck. Maybe this is naive, but feels sad that you would grow up in a different country that's not in the U.S., which has obviously the history of slavery and the Civil War and XYZ. But like even in Europe or in Belgium, that was something that you felt like you were. It's prejudice, like that's again that exists. It's sad, but like I would say, I guess that exists everywhere.
Right.
And that, again, I feel very naive just saying it, but like as you were talking, I was just like, oh my gosh, like that sucks.
It's just interesting because the perspective is different. In United States it's funny that like it's funny to me that American is like kind of a nationality when you know that everyone come from somewhere else.
Right.
Except
the melting pot.
People like the Native American that you don't see that much. In Belgium and in Europe in general is a little bit different because European people are originally white, period. So everything that is not white is originally not European. And so the problem is now, even if you would be a 4th generation or like a 20th generation African originally born in Belgium, just because of your color skin, you are still not considered as a European. You know what I mean? It's like, yeah, but you're not an original one. So when people ask me, if I go to France, for example, and people ask me, oh, where are you from? If I say, oh, I'm from Belgium, they will be like, oh, but where are you actually from?
Dang.
Expecting me to say, oh, whatever country from Africa I am from, you know? Yeah.
And I feel like it's also interesting to think about, like, not only that prejudice and that kind of thing, but you said that you were the only black kid, the only black girl, like the only one. Then there were no other black kids that like you grew up with or anything?
No, so my parents decided to live in a different city.
Okay.
Than the one where all the Congolese people were usually. Like people, like most of the black people stay in the capital, like Brussels. I guess because it's easy, I'm not sure. And my parents decided to step out of it and like start something completely different and new. So where I grew up, like it was only white, and then my parents obviously wanted us to have the best education, and that is pretty similar with here. Usually, the best schools and the best places are the ones that are where all the white people are, and so that's where we went to school. And so yeah, like maybe like I graduated from high school in 2009. That's a long time ago. And
Not that long ago.
and
Corey graduated from high school in 1987, so you're fine.
Oh, wow. Anyways,
That's not true, Lisa. Don't listen to him.
And we were 4 black kids
Okay.
out of probably 300
Wow.
kids. So yeah, that's not
Yeah.
a lot.
You said your parents went to start something new. Like that's why they didn't go to the capital. What were they doing?
Well, so when my dad became a pastor, because my dad
PK,
was a
baby,
pastor, he took the leadership of a church that was in like another like province, like another state. It's not a state, it's a province. Because the thing is also like there is a lot of like black African originated churches in Brussels, and so it would just be one other African church. And my dad just got an opportunity to do something different, and he just like take the lead of a different church that was white actually.
So they went there, and your parents took over a church.
Yeah.
So you grew up in church.
Yes.
Did you always play worship music
Yes.
or sing?
Why that response? Why the
because it was actually being in the worship was not really a choice. So in Belgium, to learn, and it's not like here when you are in school and you have like your sports and like music program attached to your school. In Belgium, your school is just academics, like math, science, whatever. And then aside from that, you have to go somewhere else to learn like music or sports. And my dad wanted us to, we are 4, like I have 3 siblings, wanted us all to learn to play keys, because my dad was actually, back in the days, a choir director. He songs, he plays guitar. And so he always has been into music, and he wanted us to be into music. So he put us at the music school when we were little. So we were going to school and then going to the music school as well. And when we were old enough to not go to Sunday school anymore, so like when you reach 12, maybe 13, it was like, okay, now you'll play at church. And I played at church.
Did you stop like formal training at that point, or did you continue?
No,
like, your
the formal training was from when I was 8 until when I was 17. It was a solid 10 years of classic piano.
Interesting. Okay, so you live there for 20, and I feel like there's a gajillion things that we could dig into about your past. Do we want to stay there? Do we want to move up in the timeline?
Let's move up.
Okay.
Unless do you have something else you want to kind of?
Oh, we're good.
All right.
So what happens when you're 24?
Right.
Well, then we have to backtrack a little bit,
Okay.
because
You asked the wrong question.
just to give it's just to go over work. So I got graduated at 22. I started working for that consulting company in engineering. They do railway, and the particularity of consulting is just like, in that setup, I mean, it's just like basically they send you in different projects in different companies, and then when the company doesn't need you, they just get rid of you. So it allows
This sounds so violent.
No, but like it's like, when a project, like if they have to restructure or they don't have resources, it's easier to fire the consultant than to fire an employee. Sure. You know what I mean? So they like to have some consultant here and there, so that they are sure that like if they don't have budget anymore, like those are the first one to go, and they don't have to like fire employees, which was good for me because I didn't know exactly what I wanted to do and I get bored very fast. So having the opportunity to change different project often without looking bad, like, oh my God, she's not stable, she's changing all the time. Well, the consultant give you like the opportunity to just switch, like the project was over. It's not my fault.
When you say like you get bored quickly, like what is that? Like what do you
I need to learn all the time. And so depending of what it is, my learning curve can be long or not. And so I learn first, so I'm super excited about the project. Then I have like that cruise phase where like I like have it all together and like I can like do everything and like I enjoy it. But then when I've seen it all, I'm like, okay, yeah, that's dumb. Let's do something else.
Well, then consulting is a perfect job for you.
Yeah, exactly. So I wanted to go to Spain, and that company had project in Spain. So I worked 2.5 years in Belgium, and then I switched to a project in Spain. So that was when I was 24. And I left for the Basque country in Spain, north of Spain. And I stayed there for 2.5 years before I came here.
So you left Belgium after graduating. You worked in Belgium for 2.5 years.
Mm-hmm.
Then you went to Spain, and you stayed in Spain for 2.5 years?
Exactly.
Okay. Your experience of being like the outsider and feeling that way because of the color of your skin and all that, was it the same in Spain as it was in Belgium?
I was a little worse. But people were nicer though. But like I definitely stuck out. Wait.
That's right.
You're right. Yeah,
Okay, stood out more because so in that part of Spain, specifically, I guess I would have had a different experience if I was in Madrid, like the capital, because I have been there a few times and like I really loved it. And then also Spain, which I actually loved, so I have no problem with the people there. But they are like they have a very strong cultural identity, like the Basque countries. They're all like Basque and like their culture is really important for them. And they have their own language and like it's very different. And so first of all, I sticked out because I was like the French speaker coming like out of nowhere. But then I was black and then I am an engineer, but like in the engineering field, you don't have a lot of female neither. So I was black and a female and coming from another country. So that was like like the super combo of like, yeah, being super different. And also like I arrived there, I was 24, but the people that were working with me were already like 32, 33. So I was also the youngest. Like I've been the youngest at my job for at least until like I reached 25 or 26 years old. So yeah.
So I'm curious. So when I was 24, I moved from Toledo to Pittsburgh, and I moved 3 hours away.
Yeah.
And I had to fully restart. And the amount of stress and anxiety I was under moving to 3 hours away was insane. How was it for you moving to an entirely different country?
Well, first, the thing is, it's only 2.5 hours from my parents. Like Spain was only 2.5 hour driving, flying from my parents. So not that far. So I feel you. And then it's crazy because like you are in a new country, different language, different administration. Like you have to think about like the taxes, getting an apartment. You do not know nobody there. I think that for the first 6 months of that year, I questioned why I actually decided to leave until like I got to a more comfortable spot. But yeah, it's crazy.
And then you moved to the US and went like, what, 8-hour flight?
Yes, that is 8-hour flight. Well, 8 hour to New York and then it's 1 hour to here. So
right. So what made you, why did you move directly from like Spain to the US, or you went back to Belgium?
I went back to Belgium for 1 month, the time for my visa and everything, like all the paperwork to be done. And then I came here for work. So it's the same company. Actually, they offered me to come here. Like that was absolutely not on my to-do list to come to live in the US. I knew that I wanted to visit the US because like everyone has to go to New York once in their life, I guess.
Yeah, that's
like that's
city.
what people tells us
Right.
in Europe, you know. So if you have the opportunity, just go there. but I was not actually attracted to live in the US. I was just like, yeah, I mean, it's cool to visit and that's it. But I feel like that was definitely like a God-led move more than a me move. Like Spain, I wanted to go to Spain, and I think that God allows it. Like it was fine. But the US is definitely like God wanted me to come here, and I just followed. Like I was fine in Spain. I could have stayed there, or I could have gone back in Belgium. So that was like a face type of move.
I'm interested, I think, right away too. Of now, like you've had the opportunity. So you would you say you were like consistent in your faith or practicing your faith, like going to a regularly scheduled service in the 3 different countries?
Yes.
Right. So like, what has that experience been like for you to experience church in 3 different places? Like, is there a difference?
The thing is, I have been raised, so my dad was a pastor, but my dad also made sure, of course, he kept us in his church, but he made sure that we had different church experiences. So we have been, like, he was leading a white, very, like, kind of structured type of church. But then we went to Pentecostal churches, we went to evangelical churches, and he, like, made a point to tell us there is different type of churches. Mm-hmm. You will not have always the same services. People will not preach always the same. In this church, there are more this and that. And so I've been exposed to so much different thing. And it was just like pointing that, okay, the core of your message is like, it's Jesus. If we are not talking about Jesus and about God, like Jesus being the Son of God, and like that he's the one through whom we are saved, that is not a good church. Other than that, like, it's fine. Like, you will see so many different like type of things. And so changing country didn't like bother me. Like, it was not a factor of like, oh, the face is different. No, like, I have seen different churches, so it was just another different one.
So when you went to Spain, you went to church. You found a church.
So I first found a church in Spain, but then I was at the border between Spain and France. So I ended up going in a church in France instead of staying in a church in Spain.
Got you. And was it also like a church similar to your father's, where it was very structured or like you...
It was a non-denominational type of church, but more structured.
Right.
Like,
when we say structured, what do we mean?
So in my dad's church, like, the service was always exactly the same. We had like 2 songs to start, then he was saying something, then we had 2 songs, then it was like offering, and then we were preaching, and then we had 1 song. Like, it's like
you've ever experienced, Corey.
It was like every Sunday was the same structure, and like each time you like the songs, everyone knew each song. You don't have that much new songs, or if they are, like, you have to prepare the congregation that we will have a new song, and like it was like a whole thing.
So then you come to the US.
Yes.
And have you been in Pittsburgh the whole time?
Yes.
Okay. And how long have you been coming to Amplify for?
Since I've been here.
Okay.
A couple years, right?
A couple years.
Yeah, it will be 4 years.
Yeah. Jeez, and so you crazy. Come to Pittsburgh and you find Amplify. But Amplify is non-denominational, but 100% leans towards Pentecostal charismatic side.
Well, now.
Right.
Was it that way when you came?
I feel like when I came, it was way more structured. It was more stick to the plan.
After, by the time that you came, was Jason already senior pastor or no?
Yes, I came when it was the second time at Historic Center. So I did Historic Center, Hillman, and then the new.
Did you ever play worship at History Center in Hillman?
Hillman, I did. I started at Hillman.
Okay. Well, Hillman was, I feel like...
It was the beginning.
Hillman, there were some crazy services that went way off the track.
It was the beginning because I remember...
I don't mean way off the track in a bad way, by the way.
No, I think what you mean is like sometimes you're put in situations and that strips us of things.
Right.
So Hillman and being in that venue stripped Amplify City of
Right.
certain like production value things.
It
certain
was
abilities.
acoustic set essentially.
Yes.
It
yeah,
was,
with that
you know,
weird drum that was just like the square with
Floorboard,
different
yes.
colors.
It was very bare bones, like production and work.
But sometimes like when you're forced to be people would say like when you get out of the way, God can move. And in a sense, when some of that stuff was stripped away, that we put a lot of value in, and I think there was a lot of good to the things. We have a lot of that back now, but it allowed a moment for God to work in the congregation and through the leadership and through the church and the people and the worship team to experiencing something new that has now we've taken the best parts of Hillman, I think, and applied those to a more, stable. We're not tearing down and setting up every day or every week.
Yeah, that's a good point.
But how do you feel about that now? Like being in a church that's much different than I would imagine. I've never been there. Than I would imagine that the church that you grew up in. It like, does it feel different, or are you sticking with the like, we're talking about Jesus, and so we're good? Like,
so my dad started leading a church when I was 20 or 22, I think.
okay,
So after that, I went to a more like evangelical Pentecostal type of church where you leave the squared like structured thing to go complete.
Gotcha.
Like I knew when the service was starting and I never knew when I would be off.
Gotcha.
It was a super dressy type of church. Like I've seen some fun stuff there. I was in the worship team, and just as an anecdote, like here we flow but like kind of structured there. I have been in services, like not the Sunday service, but like, sometimes a Sunday service where the worship leader will invent a song in live. And as a keyboard player, you are expected to follow whatever they do. And if you don't, you are the bad guy.
Right.
Nobody cares about like, he just made that up. No. You also made something up.
Right.
And we have some like crazy prayer services that was not on Sunday, but like have like an intercession like type of thing where the person that will lead the prayer, like the prayer time, would want to sing, but they cannot sing. So you are playing in C. They will start a song in a key that is between F sharp and G. And you have to catch them up and make something happen. Yeah. So then after that, when you come to Amplify, it's fine.
Right. It's not that bad. The other thing that I think just pull out too is like just a part of your crazy experiences that you also had we just acknowledge we don't hang on, but like what was like you had the opportunity to sing with Maverick City and their choir. So like let's just acknowledge that. Yeah. That's pretty freaking awesome. How was that?
That was actually I just did it for the fun side of it. I always should I say that? I like to sing. And I always like to sing in a choir setup environment. And so when I don't remember how I saw that they were auditioning for a choir. And I just decided that I wanted to go just for fun and see what happened. And I remember 1 week before the audition, I was like, what am I even doing? Because like here in the US, like people, when it's about singing, are so serious. Like people know how to sing. Like when you watch shows of people singing, like people know how to sing. In Belgium, when you look at The Voice, but like the Belgian version, like, like the first round, you have random people. So I was like, I will go there and I will meet people that are most likely worship leaders in their own church. People that are like that do music for a living. And I will just show up like, hey, I just want to sing in a choir, And then I end up passing the audition. And the experience is great. Like singing with a lot of people that can sing and like having the opportunity to worship on a stage like that has such an impact is something that you can definitely not take for granted. I was like, wow, this is definitely
So how much were you on? Were you with them for the entire tour?
I didn't do the entire tour.
Yeah.
I did Pittsburgh for sure, Columbus, Nashville, Memphis, Jacksonville, Philly.
It's amazing.
And Minnesota somewhere. Minneapolis.
Minneapolis probably.
Yeah, exactly. I think that's. Oh, I did 8 or 9 shows.
Yeah.
So you toured with Maverick City
Yes,
Music.
I did.
How did you develop as a musician through that time of touring?
It's fascinating to watch them play and like listen to songs that we over sing at church, but hearing them in a different way. Like, Jaira, everyone knows it. Like, well, now we are doing a lot Rest on Us, but at the time, like, I heard it, but like not really. But like you see them like playing them, like adding those little flavors, because for them it's like they do the exact same thing like every day for 6 months. So they have to make it flavorful for them too, like to still have fun. And so when you compare one show to the other, like I was literally like trying to have a spot behind the keyboard player so I could watch everything he was doing. And wow, no, it makes me hear the same songs like a different way.
Wow.
Yeah.
Did you spend any time at all with any of the like Maverick City, Chandler Moore?
No, we were like completely in separate space. We barely see them on stage. Like it's like the choir is one thing and the group is one thing.
And there's a lot of lights and things like that too.
Yeah. Well, I mean, even in the backstage though, we just like are in separate spaces. So you might cross them in a hallway, but like that's it.
But that
was that a disappointment?
Not really.
Like,
well, yes and no. You have that expectation that you're like, oh, I will meet them. Like I really wanted to meet Kirk Franklin because I grew up with his music. And it was funny because the first year I came in Pittsburgh, literally 1 month later, he was in a concert here in Pittsburgh. And I went to see him and I got a picture with him. And I sent it to my parents because they knew. And so I was like, wow, I went from listening to his music to be on stage with him. And that is like what is the odd that happened in a time in a life, So yeah, but then the rest was just like, oh, well, I mean, it's a job. You come, a job, a ministry, but like you do not come for the people you are singing with, So
that's a good perspective.
That's amazing. So have you gone back home since you've been here?
Yeah, last time was actually January this year.
Okay, so you see your parents and your siblings?
Yes.
Once a year at least.
I try to. Yeah.
Still a lot. It takes a lot. There's a lot of courage there.
Is a lot.
And I think there's like a sense of adventure, I think, that you have to be willing to say, like, I'm going to like leave the things I know, the place, the family, like the jobs you care about, and say, like, I'm going to explore, like, and find out like what this life has for me too. Like that's
what would, so you say a sense of adventure, right? What would we call the sense? I don't know. It could be a sense of adventure. It could be something else. But what do we call this sense? That it sounds like to me that the experience, and correct me if I'm wrong, that the experience that you've had since you were a child is you were always different and you were always going against the grain, right? And whether that be by choice,
right,
or whether that be forced upon you, not by choice at all, right? But you even talk about, you go to Spain and even you're a different color, you speak a different language, you look different, you're a different gender than a lot of what's in engineering. You're female, right? And then you go into the fact that you're younger than everybody, right? And so it feels like to me that your entire life you've been going against the grain and it hasn't stopped you. And it hasn't, like from my perspective, it hasn't stopped you and it hasn't slowed you down. Do you agree or disagree with that?
I mean, it hasn't been easy every day. Part of it is like I usually love what I do and like the steps that I take makes me happy. But at the same time, sticking out all the time is kind of a burden. And there is some days I wish I was like normal, and like some of my closest friends know I say that, all the time. Well, often that sometimes I wish I was just normal. But
what do you mean by just normal?
Like having a more classic life, like I'm 31 now, and maybe I will change country again. Like I don't even know. Like people at 31 are probably like thinking about like setting up, like having their house, like kids, whatever. And I'm like, well, maybe I should go to Australia before I'm 40. You know what I mean?
I love that.
And so sometimes I'm like, you have that. So my life is fun, but at the same time, sometimes I'm like, am I actually missing out on something I should be doing that I'm not doing? You know? But then you have like that God side where
Right.
you like, well, if God wanted me to be normal, put the quotes on normal,
Right.
whatever normal means, it would have made me in a different setup. Like I said, that like coming here was definitely a God's move more than a me move.
Right.
And there is something about fighting yourself is actually harder than trying to fit.
Wow.
And so you're just like, but then it hurts you more to try to fit, than to fight yourself.
Right.
And so you are in between, like, okay, do I just stop and like I follow everyone, but then you're unhappy, so you go with what makes you better, like what you feel like God puts in your heart, but then you're like, yeah, but then I'm sticking out more. Should I keep doing that? It's like
The word that I would substitute for some of this, when we're saying normal in this context, I think would a different word or be typical?
Yeah, usual.
Right.
Yeah.
Sometimes it's like it's just easier to be typical.
Yeah.
But and there's a habit, but
Yeah.
at its core, like the people that are typical, what do they want? Like at their core, I guess the person that's typical.
I mean,
they're looking for something that is exceptional.
Right. I think
too,
what's
like-
crazy is that, like, to be clear, I don't regret my life by any means, but I think that up until a couple years ago, a lot of people have said I had a very normal or typical or I would actually call it expected life.
Expected is a good word.
Okay.
Yeah.
Where I went to high school, I went to college, I graduated, I got a job, I got married, right? Spent a couple of years married, working a day job, had kids. So like I followed a path that I feel like is a typical or a very expected path, right? And
for you in the way that you were raised and your demographic,
my experience, you know, all of that. And I think what's crazy is that, like, sure, I got married very young. I got married at 21.
Okay.
So we're the same age, and this year I've been married for 10 years. So it's a big difference there,
Definitely.
right? But I think that even at the 20, 21, 22, 23, 24, like that age range where you were moving countries from where you grew up to Spain to then to the US, like Brooke and I would have done anything to be able to do that. To just go out to the world and, like, obviously you're working, like you're doing everything you have to do, but from, like, I remember my perspective 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 years ago, like we both grew up and born and raised in North Carolina, and us moving to Pittsburgh was because we wanted to get out and explore, right? But if we had had the option to go overseas, to go do something that was like wild, like it was way out of expectations, it was not typical, right? Like we would have done it in a heartbeat because that was what we thought we would have wanted, we would have liked.
Yeah.
And you're living that life and going, hey, wait a second. What if I should have settled down somewhere and, like, you know what I mean? So it's like, I feel like it's one of these things where it's like, is the grass greener on the other side? Like, but God also has a plan. And I think I'm in a place, you're in a place, and it's because we're supposed to be there.
Yeah, I agree.
And it's so hard to not, like, what's the quote about comparison being like the thief of joy?
Exactly
absolutely.
You know, right?
You're always comparing your worst against someone else's best.
Yeah, that's so true.
Or our normal against somebody else's best. And like, it's like, but again, this kind of gets us to like kind of this idea and this topic of like, I think comparison is a part of it, but like of like the seasons of our lives and how do we deal with that healthily? And I think a lot of times whenever we're not doing that, we're looking at somebody else that is having a different experience or in a different season or X, Y, Z. And we're saying, well, I kind of want to be in that season now too. So yeah, maybe.
What season do you think you're in right now, Lisa?
It is a huge question.
It is.
What do you define as a season, I guess?
Um,
Like, what type of answer are you expecting? Because
I think it's one of these things around, if we're gonna dive into seasons, then if you had to put, a couple of adjectives, a couple of descriptive words around the season that you're in right now, how would you describe your life right now?
I think it's a season of restoring and building. I don't know exactly where God is leading me, but I know that all the different things that I'm doing right now, even those I do not make sense together, are leading to a certain path. Like, I feel like in 5 years from here, I'll be like, whoa.
How do you know that? How do you know that all the different things you're doing that don't seem like they connect, but they are, will lead you to that? Like, how do you know that?
Because I think that God gives us different like gifting, and usually your calling is related to one or several of yours. And I know that, and I don't say that out of pride, but one of the main things that God has given me is to be able to learn a lot of things and like be able to transmit them or like restitute them or use them. And so that puts me in so much different configuration. And if I take, for example, the example of worship, like I am not the best keyboard player, I'm not the best singer, neither am I the best MD. But because I'm able to understand all of it together, I can have a good, I can be a good support. Like I'm more like a background person, not more so much a frontline. But then because I am able to like understand how it all works together, there is something more I can bring to actually every group of people. And so I feel like that translates to different things in my life, because I'm an engineer, but I am also kind of I'm a keyboard player, but at the same time, I love dancing, and then I go to the gym, and then like there is so much faces of me that do not make sense altogether, but I feel like it's leading somewhere, even though I don't know where, but I just like I'm supposed to keep building on it and see wherever we go.
I have so many questions. I
Go there. My first question was like, so when you say you go to the gym, for anybody that doesn't know, and this is just what I get from like social media, like Lisa's like a legit power lifter.
Well,
Like, are you competing? This is off topic.
I was supposed to start competing this year, but I injured myself, so I have to wait.
Oh, I'm sorry to hear that. Okay, back to your question.
Right,
Sorry.
to the real questions.
Yeah, sure. I was interested.
Okay, the season that you're in right now.
Yes.
Do you wish it would pass, and you would move on to the next season?
That's a good question.
Damn right it is.
Okay.
Cut that out. We'll cut that out. I'm sorry.
No, leave it in.
Leave
Leave it in.
I couldn't resist myself. I couldn't resist myself.
Wow, it's a hard question. I would say yes because of how hard it is. But I have to say no because everything after will only make sense because of what I'm going through now.
Yeah.
Does that make sense?
That's a good,
So no, we cannot cut it. If we could make it easier though, I would appreciate it. But
how long do you feel like you have currently been in the season that you're in?
Longer than I thought, because it took different phases. I feel like the first part was more when I start traveling and like I left countries and left country again. I feel like it was more type of building more my career path and like the side of my identity that is more related to engineering. And now it's more the side that is like more emotional, like what is my deep down me and like what God actually called me to do on a deeper level that is not just career related. So it's a completely different phase than what it was before. So I don't know, few years for sure.
Yeah, so that's like whenever we were kind of like texting and talking about like getting you like to come on, and we always throw it out to people and be like, what are you interested in? Like, what do you want to talk about most? And your response to me on Instagram, because we hadn't exchanged telephone numbers yet. But you said the topic that keeps coming up in is this idea of like life paths, which is also seen that we're all on different ones, and how we not go through the same season at the same time, whether that's singleness, relationships mainly, but like also ministry, work, X, Y, Z. And so like this is the thing that's popping up in your head, this idea of like processing and dealing with the fact that like acknowledging that we're all on different paths, we're all on different seasons. Like what experiences have you been going through? What have you been thinking about? What have you been seeing maybe in people in your circles that has made that thought, I guess, continue to pop up in your mind?
Well, so we kind of touched it a little bit before, but because I always stick out. So it started back like obviously when I was in high school, I was the only black kid, blah blah blah. But then I graduated. I got my master when I was 22. But when I was 22, all my friends were still in college when I started working. And so I was kind of in advance. And then the logical path after that, like what everyone was expecting me to do, people at church, my parents, whatever. Everyone was expecting me to be married at 25. And what do I do at 24? I change country. Now, I change country. I go to Spain. And now my friends are graduated. And then they are all in a relationship. And then they start getting married around 25, 26. And what do I do when everyone is getting married? I go to the US. And so my parents are
you running from something?
Are you running from someone?
Are you wanted?
Like,
right. Like, is there a warrant in Belgium? Who did you kill?
I'm just going further and further.
That's why she wants to go to Australia.
Right?
It's even further.
Next time, I'm on the moon.
Right.
And so...
Did you rob a bank? Like, what happened?
It's a secret.
Okay.
I'm not saying.
Clear.
Next chapter.
Got it.
You can tell us just do it in a different language. We won't
Yeah,
know.
exactly. Nobody understands. And so then now when I'm coming back, like people are starting having kids and all the things, and I'm coming back and people are like, okay, so when are you getting married? I'm like, I don't know. And then it's funny because then I come here and then most of the people I met here when I arrived were single or in a relationship, but nobody was well, not nobody, but like most of the people I met here were not married at the time. But now almost all the people that I know here are also like married or like engaged or like, and so I am still sticking out now. And now I was in advance when I was 22 and now I'm kind of late at 32. And so it's just like funny how the path of my life has been so different and unpredictable. Like I couldn't even know. Like if you would ask me at 18 what I wanted, where I saw myself 10 years later, I was probably about to tell you, well, I will be married with maybe 3 kids. And we are like 11 years later and I'm not even close. So
to that idea of what you thought it would be. Yeah.
Exactly. And so when I see now people that are like younger and like struggling and saying, oh yeah, but I want to be in a relationship, or other people that are like, yeah, but I wish my career was like there, and I am seeing this person that is already graduated, or they already bought a house, or they are investing, and I'm like still like struggling to pay my bills. I'm like, yeah, but your path is completely different. Look at what you have done already. Like that is something that those other people were not doing when they were your age. So obviously they are there, but like in 10 years from here, you will be in a different situation,
Do you feel like you've like tried to force yourself out of your current situation at all? Like to the track of you seeing, like you just, because you brought up relationships a lot, like have you found yourself like trying to force that? Or have you been
okay, no, because that's a whole different topic. But relationships it's a whole different like level of life. I feel like when you are by yourself, everything that you do only have consequences on yourself. So if I decide tomorrow that I go to Australia, my parents will be sad, yes. But that's about the only consequence that it will have. When you are in a relationship, every single decision that you make is based on how like it will impact the other person. And so I feel like before you are ready to make compromise for someone else, you have to be sure that you have made for yourself everything you wanted to do, so that then it doesn't have an impact on the other person after.
Interesting. That's so interesting. No, it is. Because I'm thinking, so we have to understand that Brooke and I, my wife and I, started dating in high school.
Okay.
Okay? Before we were 18.
Wow.
And so my entire adult life, where I could actually make decisions, or I had any sort of finances to be able to do anything, or like anything that really mattered, right? I have been in a relationship.
So do you think that there are stuff that, not saying that you regret anything right now, but are there stuff that you wish you would have done before that you cannot do now?
No.
Okay, then.
There are things that I want to do, but I don't have any regrets, because here's the thing, is that anything that I want to do it with Brooke.
Okay.
Does that make sense?
Yeah.
And I think that that's a key difference of knowing. I don't think all people, I have to say too, it's about doing life with the right person.
Correct.
When you find
so
that
true.
person,
Correct.
changes. So that could happen at 21 or
Yes.
18. And then all of your value in life is about sharing these meaningful experiences together.
Yes.
That's good.
Absolutely.
And I think that if you try to force that onto somebody, where people
Yes.
get married young because they think that's the expectation. So you always take the first person that shows interest in you, and you're like, this seems like you feel pressured into it. And then that's where I think people get really lost, because it's like, I don't know that I want to do all these experiences together, or maybe we're not even like compatible, that we have the same
Right.
interests. And so like you're torn, you feel like then you end up being 45 years old, which I think, obviously divorce is a huge thing. Over 50%, I think, rate of marriages end divorce. And I think it's because they find people made these decisions to do life with somebody that they don't actually want to do life with.
Right.
And so they feel like they're actually missing out. They've compromised themselves. So I think that until we could say God brings that person into your life.
Right.
Again, because you were married very young. I got married later in life.
Really old.
But I think it's, and sometimes I don't know, but I think that those other experiences I told Lisa on the drive up, is like, I do have parts where it's like, I'm really thankful that I had the experience of being 29, 30 when I got married. Because I knew the night that I met Abby, I was like, I've never met anybody like her.
Right.
Yeah.
And then it was like, now this is the person I'm going to do my life with. So you can't force, if we try to, we talk about like this, are people inherently broken or not full or whole at their core? And it's like, you had said about, there is a part of us that like, we need to be good with ourselves, but like God is going to be the thing that makes us good. The divine is the thing that makes us good. And we try to fill that gap.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. I like to think about life like a video game. It's like,
Me too.
Call
of Duty.
Not the same type. Though. I was imagining.
She was like,
I'm
What game
imagining
was
a
in your
game
head?
with like different like levels.
Like Tetris?
Donkey Kong.
Kind of. I think
Oh,
that
like
will work better.
Mario.
You're right.
Yeah, exactly.
Doesn't matter.
Level 1, level 2, level 3. Gotcha.
It's like we think that we have, not that a level is better than another,
Right.
but to unlock level 10, you have to pass by all the other
I
levels.
gotcha.
And like depending of like what passes your life, you might reach level 10 before me, but just because the thing that you unlocked before were different.
Right.
But now, or even maybe we are not even playing the same video game,
Right.
actually.
Right.
So like
That's
your
such a good
level
point.
10 is like whatever, and my level 10, well, I had a crazy boss at 5,
Right.
and I'm stuck there, while you are already at level 10, but we are not even playing the same game. And so I
Right.
will be like, oh my God, but he's already there. Like he got married
Right.
at 21. What the heck? Like I'm 31.
Right.
But then my
Yes.
game is completely different,
Yes.
Right.
and I
Yes.
will reach the level 10 only when I will have unlocked 1, 2, 3, 4, 5,
Right.
6 until 9. Until 9.
I think what's incredible is we mentioned it earlier, but like almost all of this kind of seasons talk and a lot around relationships, like because that was what was brought up, but also around other things is it has to do so much with comparison.
Mhm.
And I love what you're saying of like, what if you're not even playing the same game? Because then that takes comparison out of the equation as much as possible, right? Because it's like, you know what? 100%. There will be Saturdays or Friday or any day of the week where I wish that I could sleep in, wake up, go get brunch with the boys, go play a round of golf, go get some lunch, drink
He's
quite a
dreaming
bit,
right now.
go play another round of golf maybe, or maybe like go see a movie with the boys.
Yeah.
And then go have a nice steak dinner. And then like that would be great. That would be amazing.
Sounds
There's
like
some
a dream
days
day.
there's some days where it's like that right there, that would hit the spot. Okay? It would, right?
Yeah.
But what I can also say is that
So when you said anything you would want to do in life, you'd want to do with Brooke, you mean except for that kind of thing.
right. Right. But there's a but I can talk
No,
about that, by
you're-
the way. But
Good.
this Saturday, I took my 2 kids to soccer practice, and my wife was at a bridal shower, so I took them to soccer practice by myself, both of them. That was interesting. I bribed them with ice cream. So after we went and got ice cream, brought them home. We played outside. We ate lunch. They took naps. Then they got up from nap. We went on a little road trip, which is literally just driving around. We came back. We played outside.
No golf
We
involved.
went to the grocery store. We made dinner together, and then I put them down to bed. And like that day, I wouldn't give up for anything
Right.
Yeah.
because I spent all day with my 2 kids, and my 2 boys are everything to me, right? But it's this thing of where part of the beauty of what I think our relationship has is that Brooke is okay days that I go and play golf, and I'm okay days that she goes and
Right.
Yeah, that's
does
good.
whatever girls do. I don't literally no idea. Okay? But I think that there's so much power in what you're saying of we're not even playing the same video game. So much power in that. And I think the real question then becomes of like,
Yeah.
how do you, like, this is for all of us, right? Of like, how do you convince yourself that that's actually real?
Right.
On the days where I really want to go play golf with the boys, but I can't because I got to take the boys to soccer practice.
Right.
On days that you may be going, hey, I'm 31. It would be great to be married and have some kids, but I also have this freedom. Like, freedom. You can, like when you're thinking about where different people are at, you're comparing them back to yourself. You're comparing yourself to other people. What is it in you that goes, wait a second, we're not even playing the same video game. And wait a second, God has a plan for me and a calling for me. And that's where I need to operate. I don't need to go and operate over here where this person is.
Well, what helps me in those days where I'm comparing too much is to look back, because your video game has a setup, an universe, like something like the characters and all what we have been through, like the way, like until the family you're born and the place you're born, like everything is different. Like if I look at how I started and I compare to the people I'm comparing to, we didn't even start it the same way. We don't have the same family, the same siblings. Like
our video games aren't even in the same language.
Yeah, literally. Literally. You are playing on Xbox and I'm on a PC. Like,
Right.
you know what I mean? And so thinking about like how I came to this point makes me realize that, okay, you might not like it, but everything about it is unique. And so if you compare your uniqueness to someone else's uniqueness, you will never find a similarity. And so like I try to just focus on myself. It's not easy
Yeah.
every day, but that's kind of what like helps me realize that, okay, well, my video game is different. Like
Yeah.
everything about me is different.
Matt, what you got?
I think it's an interesting idea where if you take the video game analogy and like purpose, like replace it with like purpose. And it's this comparison of purpose. And I think a common thing that people do is they place their purpose in something in the future. And the future doesn't exist. Like there is no guarantee of it. And so really your purpose is only in where you are right now. And so kind of
present. Yeah.
Yeah. How does that, I mean, I guess like kind of taking that idea, I don't know, like I keep hearing, we keep talking about this, and I struggle with this too, is like you compare my purpose to another person's purpose, but I'm comparing where I think I should be 5 years from now, 10 years from now, tomorrow.
Yeah.
But all I have is today and is right now. And so it's like, what can I do right now that's going to dictate my purpose now rather than the game that I'm playing from like a higher level, I guess.
My therapist and I have had several talks about this. To be real. About how pretty much any form of anxiety or stress or these different things come from trying to make up hypothetical situations that could or could not happen in the future. Right? And realistically, all we can do is control today, right now. And any anxiety is happening in the future.
Yeah.
Right? And to come back and focus on today, and to come back and focus on right now, and to, even if we legitimately talk to my therapist about how when you get to the end of the day, I have gone to a therapist for a while now about having problems sleeping. And part of my issue is that when I lay down in bed, I feel like my mind goes, it flips the switch and it starts going a million miles an hour. And I can't turn it off. I just go, and then I roll over. I look at the clock, and now it's 3:30 in the morning, and I'm like, I'm supposed to get up at 6. What am I supposed to do right now? But part of that is that when I get to the end of my day, I need to look back, and basically, it's funny because my therapist isn't really talking in terms of faith, right? But my therapist is literally like, look back on the day and name off all the things that you're grateful that you got done. And look back at the day in a very, like, have a very thankful attitude back towards it, and a very have gratitude back towards the day of like, I got X, Y, and Z done. And even though I may not have gotten A, B, and C done right now at 1:00 in the morning, I can't do them anyway. Nobody's awake. Like, I can't make a phone call. I can't get somebody, like, so I can't do anything. And the best thing for me would be to go to sleep right now, turn everything off. And I think it's interesting when we start talking about purpose, we start talking about seasons in that way of like, what if, because I don't think that my personal attitude towards the season that I'm in is always gratitude.
Oh, for sure.
It's not. Right? But what can I do to work on that? What can I do to look at it more in that way?
Yeah, like, why is waiting so hard?
Lisa, why is waiting so hard?
Well, I think that we are in a society nowadays where we have everything quick
On demand.
all the time.
Right there.
And so it kind of removes the waiting process. So now, like, look at when you order something on Amazon, like you want it tomorrow. While back in the days, you are old enough to like write. No, wait.
Corey, you are old enough.
No, both of you, like even me, but like you lived at the time where you
Lisa,
had
we're the same age.
I know,
You
but
lived at the time when
what I meant is you will understand what I mean.
Yes.
When you wanted to send, I don't know if you did that, but like I was sending letters to my friends that were not living in the same city than me. And to wait an answer back from that one friend, I was like, what, 8 or 9? I was like in the 80s. No, in the 90s, sorry. I'm born in 91. And you had to wait literally maybe 3 weeks before they send it you back a letter.
Mhm.
And now we are upset when we didn't get an automatic answer in the next 5 minutes when we order something. And so those things are practical things, so we don't think it's that bad. But now in the more intangible sides of life, it makes it really harder because it's stuff that we do not see, stuff that we cannot anticipate. So we become more anxious and more impatient because we have literally nothing to rely on. We don't have a tracking number to figure out like where our next blessing is coming or where are we going.
That'll preach though. We don't have a tracking number for where we're going.
No, we don't.
Like
I wish we had.
No, just that like is so good.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, I think that's interesting because that's a principle that is all throughout Scripture of sowing and reaping.
Yeah,
and the relationship between the seed and the ground
season.
But I think it becomes. I think it's part of like societally. I think that God chose to use those as a metaphor because there is something that no matter what can't be sped up through that process. Because we always talk about like, hey, beat your seeds and put them on good ground and then you'll get a harvest. But we don't actually talk about is the
how
wait.
long. And
then we want to jump right from whether it's trying to be healthier, get back into shape. It's like, well, I'm gonna plant the seed, I'm gonna get up this morning, I'm gonna work out, and then we want a result very quickly.
Like
I didn't see anything
tomorrow,
in 3 days. So that's disheartening. And we go, but like, so yes, I think that your answer of like society, and technology and how everything that we interact with every day, I don't think it necessarily contradicts the principles of how God works, but like it makes us feel like I want something, I get something very quickly, and healthy things in life and I think in God, like I think he can move quickly, but like ultimately it's like it's not always that way.
Yeah, I feel like what was meant to help you originally is now not serving us at all. You know?
Yeah, I mean it is whenever you get the Chipotle real quick.
True.
You know, but it's not serving. I think in like our soul and like understanding the nature of how God works and how healthy things grow over time. The on-demand is not helpful.
Well, the thing is, the on-demand is a human creation, while like the waiting process and like the nature is God created. Right. So we created stuff that are like our image, and then when we face what God created, then we struggle.
Yeah, and we also we look at it as in like, well, my act of faith was the beginning thing that was pointing the seed, and then the realization of the promise is the harvest time. And then everything. So what are we doing in that waiting time? Just sitting there with our thumbs up our butt, waiting to be like, could this come quicker?
Watching the seed.
But what if we're like realistically, like it's about like, what are we learning through the waiting?
Right.
Yeah. Well, it's like that's probably more the lesson than getting the piece of can. It's like
take that analogy of seed time and harvest time, right? Of sowing and reaping. And what do farmers have to do from the time they plant until the time they have to harvest? Yeah. You have to water. You have to go through and plow. You have to pull the weeds. You have to tend and take care of that field.
And you also have to prepare the place where you will put everything when you will go.
It takes a lot of work to get from sowing to reaping. Like a lot of work. Yeah. And I think that what you're saying is so real. Of the world wants to show us that there's zero time, or as little time as possible between sowing and reaping. But that's not actually a natural law. That's a man-made law. Whereas a natural law is sowing and reaping happens in seasons. Yeah. And in Ecclesiastes, it talks about there's a season for everything. Yes. It gives a whole long list of all the different things, right? But in one of those verses after that, it says that, but God has made God has made. Can you look this up, Matthew?
Yeah.
I don't know why I called you Matthew. I've never called you Matthew.
I like it though.
I think it's
there's a level of respect there.
Something.
But after that, there's something like God has made everything beautiful in its time, or something like that.
Yeah.
Right after the list of all of it.
It's Ecclesiastes.
It's 3. After the list.
Yes.
Yeah, Ecclesiastes 3. It's maybe 8.
Yeah, God has made everything beautiful for its own time. He has planted eternity in the human heart, but even so, people cannot see the whole scope of God's work from beginning to end. So I concluded there is nothing better than to be happy and enjoy ourselves as long as we can, and people should eat and drink and enjoy the fruits of their labor, for these are gifts from God.
That of like Solomon, commonly believed to have written Ecclesiastes, there's some scholars who disagree, is writing that like there is going to be time, but it's beautiful, and the best thing you can do is enjoy it.
Yeah.
Right? And this is coming from a man who had everything,
Literally.
who had every option, every indulgence, everything that you could possibly have. And then he had all of that and then said, but all of this isn't enough without
wisdom. Yeah.
Right. And I think that is so powerful. And so my question now back to Lisa is how difficult is that? Do you feel like you're enjoying everything and everything seems beautiful in the season that you're in?
I would like to say yes, of course, as the good Christian that I am, right? I will be content in everything. No, okay.
Preach it.
That is the theory. But then we are still human beings, and there are stuff like I personally do really, really bad when I don't understand something, and I get really frustrated in every area in my life. Like if I don't care about being wrong. Like if I'm wrong, you tell me, I will admit it. I will be like, oh yeah, my bad. Like you're right. But if I don't understand something,
you just have to show me that
yeah,
I'm
you'd
wrong.
have to explain to me. It drives me nuts. And so for me, that is really hard because I can see like how my life is different. But since I don't know why, some days when I have too much time to think, I loop in my head that I actually do not have a purpose because I don't understand why all the things do not click together. And I have to remind myself that God is the one that makes the plans. And so he orchestrates everything from the beginning. So everything will make sense, just not when I decided that it has to make sense. But it's definitely not easy every day.
Yeah. There's a context is a little taken out here, but
Jeremiah
there's a verse.
29:11.
No.
Dang it.
1 Corinthians. Paul's talking about like church leadership specifically, but I did like write this down and it kind of works here. I think he said, I planted the seed, Apollos watered it, but God has been making it grow. So neither the one who plants nor the one who waters is anything, but only God makes things grow. The one who plants and the one who waters have one purpose, and they will each be rewarded according to their own labor. For we are co-workers in God's service. You are God's field, God's building, blah, blah. But ultimately, I think it's about like, my question following that would be like, what is our responsibility in a season? Like, what are we responsible for? Because like you just said, like God is the one making the thing grow. We plant, we water, but God is doing that. So like, what is our responsibility in those?
Well, we have assignments. So God tells you plant, you plant. You don't know who will water. You don't know when it will grow. You will know who will do the harvest, but God told you to plant. So plant. And our responsibility is to do the assignment that God told us to do. Like the last thing that like, for example, for me, like I know that right now, I'm at the right place at the right time. I will not try to go to Australia right now, even if I want, because I know that for now, in this season, I have to be here. How long? I don't know. Why? I don't know. I just know that if I go to Australia right now, I'm ruining my own. Well, of course, God can. Like,
for sure.
You know.
What if I don't know if I'm in the right time or the right place, and I don't know what my assignment is?
I feel like so there is two ways to look at it, especially like in a like Christian purpose. So like in God, like with God behind, there is two ways I do it. It's like either I just rely on the last assignment I was sure I got from God, which in this case is like go to the US and I'm in the US and I stay there until I feel like I have to do something. Either, but then it's not that big of a change and like I would try something else and then if it doesn't work I will just block it. But the risk with that second one is just to go too far to have to come back, but it's also a risk to take. And like obviously you pray about it, you'd be like, okay, God, I don't know what you want. I'll try this. If it's not you, block it. If it's you,
I think that is really critical of like if anyone who ever listens to this feels like you don't know where you're supposed to be or don't know what your calling is, don't know what your assignment is, like she just answered it, like get into prayer, get into the word, because I feel like if you don't have an assignment, you don't know what your calling is maybe in that moment or in that season, then your calling is to be more intimate with the Lord.
Yeah.
And go and seek that, right? Seek first. Okay. Matt, did you have something or no? No. All right. That was just random.
Yeah, I mean, there's a lot of scriptures though that would affirm that and say that like that God directs our path. He's a lamp unto our feet, a lamp to our path. I think where we get into hard parts is when we're in seasons that we want to try to will our way out of it and force it. It's like I think if we have to be honest about like what's my real driver here,
Right.
like what's the motivating thing?
Yeah.
Is it something that I feel like I'm lacking personally? So I feel like I'm gonna kind of will my way out of that. And I think that first off, whether you're talking in the Christian perspective or not, this idea, like think about it, like a lot of Eastern practices, like Eastern religion, like everybody is really doing a lot of work and fighting for this act of being able to be present, to be here, to be now. It is an innately human thing to not be satisfied with what we have now,
Right.
and to think about the next one. I don't know how I have to do a lot of work to even enjoy vacations. So you talked about the thing like if I had a magical day of waking up, having some brunch, mimosas, golf, more hangout, golf again, steak dinner, like that. If we had that on the books, which we do have a weekend planned tentatively
And
to do
technically
something.
we did that for Father's Day.
Right. But I will tell you that there's what is twisted about me and maybe other people is it is actually not the day that I enjoy the most. Like it's not the round of golf. It's not the what I enjoy the most is the anticipation of I'm going to have a really fun day. So I have all this hype. It's the Christmas Eve thing. I'm so excited for it. And the best part of that Father's Day, my favorite part of the whole day would be like right when we meet up.
Right.
When we get in the car, right when we get to the first mimosa or your breakfast before you've done, and you got a whole day in front of you. But as soon as we tee up, there's a clock that ticks in my head and being like, well, this is over. Yeah. And my perspective is always like, it's all like all my joys and the anticipation for the good thing that it stops me from really enjoying the full moment.
I feel like that's
presently.
a you problem, man.
That's a me problem?
Yeah,
you don't feel that way when you go on vacation?
Anybody I don't feel that way till like the last day.
Oh, I feel it after the first night. Like maybe I make it 24 hours and then I start thinking about.
You're just the first night kind of guy.
I think about it, but not the same way. I will be like, at least I enjoy because then it will be done. At least I enjoy because then it will be done. And then it runs the thing.
Yeah. Okay. Matt, do you align with me or more of Taylor?
Matt wasn't listening to anything
I was
talking about.
Finding another thing.
Are you a first night kind of person? Like when you go on
Yes.
vacation, are you more excited about the anticipation, the drive, the get
Yes.
there, that first initial wave?
Yeah.
And then I just start thinking about how it's going to end.
Yep. 100%. And I was just on vacation a couple weeks ago and Kate got mad at me because the day before we left, I was like, man, this has been great. She's like, shut up. Like, this isn't over yet. It's like, well, let's appreciate it now because it's going to be
again,
over.
That all
but
just
we're
comes
here
back
now.
to this being here now, letting this moment be enough.
All right,
So-
I'm about to flip this on the head. Go ahead, Matt.
I'm going to go
And
because
I'll
I
flip it.
missed your question because I was finding this quote that I read yesterday. For the present is the only thing of which a man can be deprived. It is true. If it is true that this is the only thing which he has, and that a man cannot lose something he does not already possess.
Sheesh. All right, now I'm gonna flip it on his head. You ready for this?
Let's not talk about that one at all.
We
Good
can
question.
we can go.
No, go ahead.
I just
Flip
have
it,
to
flip it. I know you
this.
want to flip it.
Here it is.
Go ahead, buddy.
Is that what you're talking about right now?
You couldn't be present right there.
No, I couldn't.
You had to go right to your
You're
point.
absolutely right. Maybe after I get done with this point, we repeat it and then we can talk about
Sure.
it. Okay. But here's what the thing is that the way you're talking about the anticipation leading up to it and then it happens and then you want it to end or like it's already over.
Yeah, I just get sad.
Right? Here's the thing is I would venture to say that's how a lot of people, including myself, look at seasons in life. Of wherever you're at right now, you really want to be in the next place. And you actually pray, right?
Mm-hmm.
And you
for
pray for the next season.
That's good.
And you want the next season so badly. And then the season changes. But a lot of times my brain, I'll just talk for me now, my brain goes already to I want the next season. When really I'm living what is the absolute result and like culmination of the prayers that I was praying a year ago.
Yeah.
But I'm now in that season, but I'm already looking for the next one. And so I think that anticipation idea is how I would say a lot of people live their actual lives. Yeah. We're always in anticipation of what's in the next one.
I want to hear what you have to say about this, Lisa, but like when you said that, all I could think about was the season that my wife and I were going through for a while of like wanting to have a child. Mm-hmm. And there's so many, anybody that's been in this process, you know, the kind of like monthly highs and lows, like it's just devastating. And we were actively praying for it nightly, believing that this thing's going to happen. And I remember trying to have like kind of like just conversations and awareness of being like, yes, it's okay to have expectancy for something good to come and to believe for something good that in your life, the next season. However, if I lose the perspective or the awareness of the fact is like, it could be disappointing every month when Abby's cycle would start and you're like, oh, we're not pregnant again. But if I switch my perspective through a lens of faith and be like, that time will come, Corey, and praise God, it has come. But I will never in the same way get to go back to those nights where it was just my wife and I sitting quietly and watching something. And so
you will.
Like not in the same years. But not in the same way. Not in the same way.
Right.
Like you'll never go back to that, like your first couple years of marriage or however long your season is, where you don't have kids. Mm-hmm. Like that's a season that will change.
Right. And
you'll never get that back. So as much as we were wanting to have a child and move our family forward, and those are all beautiful things, there's an effort of being like, don't throw this time away. Mm-hmm. I'm praying for tomorrow and I'm wasting today of enjoying the moment of just being able to like sit on the couch together and be like, what do you want to watch next? Nothing really good on. It doesn't matter. Let's just put something on because who cares?
Right.
Because and that can just be a blur. And that's a really special and magical time. And each season that we're in has something like that. Mm-hmm. And you might not be in the same kind of thing, but like it has something that seems mundane in a moment, but is precious to that season because it will not exist in your next season or as much. So just that, we're wishing for tomorrow and like throwing away what we can learn and how we can grow today. Sorry, go ahead, Lisa. What do you got?
No, I actually agree with you. It like made me think about two things that my friends, girl, are going through literally all the time in that life process where they are single and people are like, oh, when are you going to get a boyfriend? And you have a boyfriend and it's like, when are you getting engaged? And then you engage and like, when are you getting married? And then when are you getting kids? And then when the second one, and it feels like it doesn't help, like social pressure in general. That is just an example, but doesn't help us to actually enjoy our time right now, what we have right now, because it feels like we are missing out all the time on something else. While actually there are always great things that are happening even in this season when we don't understand it. And the second thing that it made me think about is going back to the video game analogy. There is still stuff to do in your game, even if you're not fighting a boss. Like you are walking around, like you are earning coins, or like you are making your armor like stronger, whatever. So there are still stuff to do, even though you are not like stepping in a new level. And to make it more biblical, we can see the seasons of life of like all the people that we admire in the Bible, Joseph, David, or like Esther or whatever. Like before the big chapters, like we know that David was king, but he was also a warrior, and during that warrior he won battles, but he also did other stuff, and like we just focus on, oh, he was a king, or he was anointing, but like he has a life.
Oh, he defeated Goliath.
Yeah, exactly.
There was a whole lot that
is,
happened before that.
Exactly.
Right.
And so we just focus on like the step, and like we're like, what is the next? What is the next? But there is like so much in between, like that we do not read and like we do not learn from. So
I think that's what's really interesting is particularly in business or anything like that, like you hear about people like John D. Rockefeller, right? That at his time, richest man alive. And that man was insane. His biography called Titan is actually an incredible book. But you always look at people as the end result. You never look at the process to have gotten there.
Right.
Yeah.
All the things that they had to do, they had to go through, whether that be in life, whether it be in the Bible, of like, it's so crazy.
Yeah.
To think, I mean, the example of David, like his life was like, there were some wild things that happened.
Yeah,
definitely.
I think too, it's like you in the stories you miss a lot. They often don't talk about the quiet times and the still times. For people, like times in study and prayer and thought, and like for all these, it's just the moments of action that really get caught. And so life, when there's not action happening, can feel stagnant or frustrating.
But also we always forget that each season prepares you to the next one. Yeah. And so spending time waiting for something without getting prepared, like everything you are doing right now is what will help you in the next season, no matter if you know what the next season is or not. And so we are like skipping all those things, praying for the next season to come. And then if the next season come and then we are not prepared, then we will be regretting the previous season. While if you actually enjoy what you are going through, or like at least like make sure that you learn everything you can out of it, then it will make everything else, whatever the else is, better.
It makes me think of the Maverick City Elevation song, like that was on for like I'm Gonna Wait on You. And it's like it's not, but even like the part where Dante does the little thing, da, da, da. But he's talking about it's like what's he talking about? It's like it's I don't remember everything he said, but it's like it's not about what you do when you wait. Like it's not about the waiting. It's what you're doing in the waiting. So instead of complaining, why don't we just start praising in the middle of the storm? Yeah, whether he's like
goodness, trusting your promise.
Well, when he speaks it, he's just like he's like why do we complain when we should praise? And that's also another part about like praise is like we praise in our happy times, but it's like praising through struggles and through seasons that when you don't feel it. There's a difference between, and Mike Todd had I think a sermon series kind of around this, but there's a difference between like sitting still and lying in wait.
Yeah. Yes. Matt, what was that quote that you read just a minute ago that I completely and utterly ignored?
Sure.
Wow.
For the present is the only thing of which a man can be deprived. If it is true that this is the only thing which he has, and that a man cannot lose something he does not already possess.
All I'm thinking about is, with everything that we've been talking about, and it's not as elegantly put as that, but I think that the crutch of seasons, the thing that can tear us down, is comparison. And comparison is what is stealing the present away from people, and the way to fix that is gratitude.
Yeah.
Right? To praise and to have gratitude through, regardless of what you're going through. And I feel like that's a lot easier said than done for some, like depending on the circumstance. But there's also this idea of like, I think a lot of things that I think about, whether it be from therapy or from praying myself and all these kinds of things, is like I feel like I think now in the sense of like almost this like scale of like peace. Like how much peace do I have right now? And how much do I want, or how much do I not have? Like in this sense of like what's going to bring me the most peace right now? And 9.9 times out of 10, it's like, you just need to stop and pray for a minute and like thank God for what's going on right now and like pick out all these things. And a lot of those ideas came from therapy of being gracious for the things that you have right now. But I think that it can be so powerful of, we're all in different video games. We're all like,
It's all a simulation.
We're all in the Matrix. Like, it is what it is. We're all in different languages. Lisa's main menu may be in French, but like when she presses the pause button, it's in Dutch. The characters are speaking in Spanish. Like, who knows? Like,
Just for the anecdote, I'm learning Portuguese right now. Keep going.
okay, Lisa, learning Portuguese. Got to throw the fifth language on. No, it's fine.
Just based on that, I was like, do you have a heavenly language too? What are you
Right,
going to
right. Yeah, are you speaking tongues? Is that number 6? Like, what are we talking here? Yeah, right. But I think that the going over that of like comparison and shame versus thankfulness and gratitude is wild. How are you feeling, Lisa? Did this conversation go the way you thought it was gonna go?
I had no expectation actually.
She was just present.
Right.
Yes.
Yeah, I feel like it's a great conversation to have, and it helps everyone. Like, we could all relate to what we're talking about, even though we are absolutely in different seasons of life, all of us. But we still have common ground, and like we understand and learn the same thing out of it. So
yeah,
I think it's a very great conversation for sure.
We are very thankful that you took the time to come and do this and to share your experience, your perspective. It's been very cool. Very cool.
Yeah.
So take heart, run your race. I always feel like I'm just now going through like a bunch of random words from scriptures, not one full complete scripture. I was just gonna
a bunch of trying to figure out where you were going.
Yeah, earlier I was thinking about Paul and talking about like when you said the video games thing about like how he runs his race and he finished his race. And, well, he actually says I run the race, meaning like
true,
which made me think I was going to use that, and I was like, well, he's kind of talking about like the same game. Maybe I didn't think it was helpful. Maybe it'd be more accurate to say run your race, fight your fight.
Yes,
but
the Lord has plans to give you a future and a hope.
Jeremiah 29:11.
There it is.
I love it.
It's good.
Cool. Well, thank you, Lisa. This was good.
Thank you, guys.
Thank you.
For having me.
Love you again.
Love you, man. Love you, everybody.